Welcome to another episode of What Else You Got with Mitch and Margot. I'm Mitch, she's Margot, and how you doing today?
Hey, that made me think of a really old TV show. How you doing today? But I don't know what the TV
How
show
you
is.
doing? It's
How
friends.
you do? How you doing?
How you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah. When you know the Q-tip, you're supposed to stop when you feel resistance.
Oh, is that what we're hitting? Is the resistance right now? How
Well,
you doing?
that's another quote.
Hey, I'm doing okay. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Any interesting things bouncing around in that head of yours? Anything you'd like to talk about today?
I've got a lot of interesting things, but the one that's been pressing on my mind is when is a trial a blessing?
When is a trial a blessing? First, we must define trial. Go ahead.
Oh, you're asking me what a
Yes.
trial is?
I mean, I know
So
what a trial there are multiple definitions to every word, and we like words. So
mhm.
first, before we can answer or address your question, define the nouns in the sentence.
Okay, so we're not going to court for this one, so trial is not legal. But the context or connotation I'm going for is a struggle or a difficulty, a opposition that you've encountered that you are struggling to get through. It's a trial in the sense of like trial by fire, where you are trying to get through it to get something at the end.
Okay, and then define blessing.
Well, I realized I kind of bundled it in with the you're trying to get through something to get the reward at the end. Blessing really just comes down to a reward, a gift, a improvement of state that is bestowed from someone else.
Okay, so if your question is when is a trial a blessing, I push back and say when is it not?
Ooh.
Because yep, that's right. When is it not? Because if you even think of it in terms of leg day at the gym, you could, by your definition of trial, you could say that leg day at the gym is exhausting. You might not necessarily want to do it. It is something you have to push through and push beyond, and sometimes learn new skills to overcome and master, and literally build your muscles, strengthen your muscles to overcome the trial that you've chosen to put in front of yourself. And the reward, the blessing, might not come immediately, might not come the next day, because you hear people all the time complain the next day about how yesterday was leg day at the gym. But when the reward comes, the blessing is stronger legs, stronger joints, more endurance, more capacity to lift, more strength to literally overcome obstacles in your path. And so, when is a trial not a blessing? I think Okay, to answer my own question, I think a trial is not a blessing when you've got a lousy attitude about it. When you've got a lousy attitude about whatever it is you are in the process of overcoming or working through, then you may never receive a reward. You may never receive a blessing, because your rotten attitude overshadows any positivity that might come out from the situation. So I would say that's when a trial is not a blessing, is when you've got a lousy attitude. We're all going to have trials. I mean, multiple per day. It depends upon your attitude going through it, how quickly, how efficiently, how masterfully you'll go through it, and the type of blessing or reward you'll receive after.
Yeah, and kind of taking something you said at the beginning and something you said at the end with the rotten attitude. Sometimes that is the growth realm of how did you make the rotten attitude less of a rotten attitude and more of a positive attitude. Sometimes that's the basic in that, but you're also approaching it from a capacity gain where you're improving a skill, you're expanding a capacity. I was actually thinking a slightly different approach because one thing that I haven't communicated a ton, but for the handful of people that actually are followers, about 2 months ago, I lost my day job, and it's one of those that you're going, all right, that's rough, especially before Christmas, but it's one of those that in the moment it sucked, but I was able to help family with a couple of problems that showed up, and then I had a opportunity show up 2 weeks ago that it may be the long-awaited blessing that I've been waiting for years for, but it's one of those that I had to have a bumpy road to get there.
Well, and to your point of what you just said, sometimes life will propel us out of our current situation so that we can find new opportunities and new wonderful things that we would never have found if life had not kicked our rear out of our comfortable seat.
But yeah, far too often, like you said, where we like our comfortable seat. Um, Comfortable seat is not where you grow. You might grow a gut, but you won't grow much in your capacity, in your ability, in your opportunity, because you're in one spot. Because if we go all the way back to prehistoric days, who survived? The one who went out and fought the lion to get food, or the one who sat in the cave waiting for the lion to eat them?
I think it is so funny that we number 1, you and I do not discuss topics before we record these podcasts. And so sometimes, as you know, we'll record 2 podcasts in a row. And so because of that, we usually at least bring 1 topic each. And so I find it awesome that this is the topic you brought because the topic I was going to bring for discussion was, is progress encoded in our DNA? And so you just threw it back to cavemen, and you're talking about, overcoming trials to receive blessings or rewards or betterment. And my question that I was going to bring for discussion today is progress encoded in our being. So whether you believe in evolution or you believe in a higher power, I think that progress is so in our DNA that we are not meant to sit still. We are meant to improve ourselves. We are meant to move forward. We are meant to progress. And you talked about, like the fittest of the survival of the fittest. Well, that's progress, right? We need to be improving ourselves. We need to be progressing, and that's true whether you believe in religion or believe in evolution or both. We are creatures that are meant to grow. Even if you think about a flower does not just pop up out of the ground and stay in the same state for the entirety of its life. Time lapse videos of flowers blooming and growing are some of my favorite types of videos. But even the time progress wait, what did I just say? The time lapse videos of flowers, they in their progress, it's not just a straight upward line. The progress of a flower is opens in the sunlight, and then it recedes in the darkness, and then it opens more in the next sunlight, and then it recedes, and then it opens even more in the next sunlight. And so sometimes as humans, we expect a constant upward trajectory in our progress. But the natural cycle is growth and then rest, growth and then rest, growth and then rest. And it is not linear. It is ups and downs, but continuing to progress upwards.
So you're saying we're just waiting for things to calm down? That's not going to last more than a minute for us to catch our breath before the next set of things begin?
Well, it varies.
Yeah, and so it's one of those that everyone wants to be in their comfort zone. Well, there's a reason why it's a comfort zone, but the growth zone is just beyond the comfort zone.
Exactly. And like I said, we're not meant to just sit as much as I love ice cream and TV, we're not meant to just sit. We are meant to be improving ourselves. We are meant to be learning. We are meant to be, you know, increasing our intelligence, our knowledge. We're meant to be going out and experimenting and exploring. And I've been watching, oh, I don't remember her last name, but her first name's Taryn. She just rode, I don't remember how many days, 40 some odd days across the Atlantic Ocean. First woman from the United States. I think she might have been the first solo woman, but first solo woman from the United States to make this row across the Atlantic by herself. And it was actually a race from with a lot of people in the race, and they were timed from the moment they left port until the moment they arrived. I think they started in Spain and ended in Antigua, but she is amazing. And she said in one of her videos, she said a lot of people had asked her, "Why are you doing this? Why are you spending more than 45 days by yourself in the middle of the ocean? Why are you doing this? What's the point of it?" And she said in her video something to the effect of, "This is the point of life, to go out and seek adventure." And she said, "I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. Life is meant to be an adventure. We're not meant to sit in a chair and eat ice cream and watch TV all day long. We are meant to be expanding our knowledge, expanding our physical fitness, and out in nature, out in life, exploring and learning and growing."
I heard one reason why we feel like life speeds up the longer we live and time passes faster is because more of those days become routine. With routine, we just do the same thing. And because it's the same thing, we generally don't really remember it or uh, mark it as time in our minds. We just get through the routine, we go to the next routine. And the next thing you know, you have two events that are memorable that come together, and you go, what happened to all the time in the middle? And it's just one of those because it's routine. Um, but I'm going to back it all the way up to your question of progress encoded DNA, because I had a thought that I wanted to bring up of our friend Darwin, uh, where you were talking about survival of the fittest. Well, there's also another part of the traits that get passed down are from those who survive, which in this case are the fittest. But at the same time, what are their habits? Their progress, where that progress come to, it's then passed down to the next generation, where we have compounding, and then at the same time, since we're not as Darwinistic as quite a few other people prefer, we don't quite weed out to the weakest all the time, and so we start getting these less progressive traits that come through, and that's where because we prioritize life over progress sometimes, it's one of those that we might not have the strongest population health wise, or we might not have the strongest population wealth wise, or strongest population in a bunch of different ways because we allow those to grow. But at the exact same time, we have the high progressing groups that they seem to only get better each time, every year, every generation, whatever measurement, because they are able to progress, pass that knowledge on, and therefore, not only is it in our DNA, but it's also on our cultural, it's in our knowledge that we transfer, and we're able to continue to build out that as a group because just on the knowledge transfer, if we go back in history, we're not living the same lives as we were in the 1900s. We have built upon what they've had. We've been able to improve upon what they've had. We've been able to use what they've had, and we're able to progress not from starting with sticks and stones. We're able to progress from the last check mark or checkpoint that someone did. And we're able to grow through that, which on another spin-off thought of there's a thought concept that's going around where quite a few millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha feel like they've been shortchanged by some of the older generations. But the thought is that we have the ability to feel shortchanged because the previous generations have built it where we see the opportunity that there could have been more.
Yes, and I'm also thinking of terms in, progress and that linear. upward slope versus growth and rest and growth and rest. I also think that our lives, for many people, lives have become so complicated and so many people are experiencing overwhelm and burnout that they're forgetting the rest part. And so, with so many people working so hard that they hit burnout and overwhelm, they also hit decision fatigue. And in our current modern day, there are so many opportunities coming at us so fast from every direction. A lot of people suffer decision fatigue. It's a real thing. And so, when people are experiencing burnout, overwhelm, and decision fatigue, that natural rest period is no longer natural. It becomes a withdrawal. And you talked about the daily routine, the daily grind. Well, sometimes if people are stuck in burnout and overwhelm, when they do get a day off, they cocoon in their homes, wrapped up in a blanket with the ice cream and the TV, because the idea of making one more decision is just, it just pushes them beyond their limits within their own overwhelm. And so the idea of going out and exploring the world, being in nature, in their time off, it just feels like one more decision. And so I think in our fast paced world, we've lost that natural ebb and flow of stretch and growth and then rest, stretch and growth and rest. We're skipping the rest stage. We need to build that rest stage in so that we can have healthier, happier lives.
Yeah, and just with the ebbs and flows, traditionally, winter, wherever you're in the world, because winter's two different time zones to, or two different seasons,
Hem-
two different
Hemispheres?
months. Yeah, based off of where you are on the planet with the hemispheres, and it's one of those that generally during the winter we slow down. Why? Because there's not so much being grown. We're not as much of farmers anymore. Uh, we slow down because it's cold and we don't really want to go out. We slow down because we don't really want to be outside. But in modern society, everywhere's lit all the time, everywhere's warm all the time, everywhere's cool all the time. So, yeah, of course, there is no stopping because there's only going. And kind of like what you're saying with cocooning, before I lost my job, I was very much cocoonish, where I got my weekend and I did as little as possible. But since I lost my job, I'm able to spread out the work a little bit more, where I'm actively actually trying to do things that I've been avoiding because decision fatigue, just effort fatigue, stress fatigue, however, whatever fatigue you want to stick in it. Because granted, it's taken me 2 months to relax to the point where I can start doing stuff again. But it's, to your point, there's still progress. But if you're able to pace your progress, is the difference between a sprint and a marathon. If you sprint all the time, you're not going to be able to make the marathon. But if you train for a marathon, you'll eventually be able to increase your speed, reduce your time, and progress. But that first time you do the marathon, it'll be pretty slow.
Yep. And even marathoners, when they're training, they don't go out and run 25 miles on the first day or the second day or the third day or even the day before they go and run the marathon. It's a process and it's planned and it's, they push and rest and push and rest. Ooh, that even made me think of Taryn rowing her boat. You push and pull. But I think we need to remember that there are natural cycles in everything. And when we when we fight against nature, if when we fight against the process of life, and it'll just give us a bad attitude. And circling clear back to your original question of when are trials a blessing, trials are a part of life. Obstacles are a part of life. And our attitude makes all the difference. And even when we're going through an extended trial that might last years, there are still moments within that time period where you can experience peace and joy and harmony and laughter and hope and happiness. So even if it's a trial that lasts years, Pause in that rest moment and look around yourself and notice the flight path of birds. Notice the falling of leaves. Find peace in the immediate now and be mindful, and it will really help you get through that extended trial.
Yeah, I know I had a bunch of thoughts while you're speaking, but good listening is you listen, you don't think, which I always try to be good with. But yeah, circling back to the when's trials a blessing, for the extended time I've been without work, I've had the ability to get that different perspective change where I can actually start approaching things again and to be able to try different things and be able to have that clear mind to continue to progress. And I'm really trying to remember the really cool thought I had just while you're talking. But it really is just one of those that the ebbs and flows allow you to cycle and to try different things. And it's right on the tip of my tongue on what the thought is. But it really just comes down to figure out when it is to take a rest, when it is to continue. And to your point, you said some of the trials may be long, but you can still have joys in it. I just remember one of the thoughts. So some of the trials you go through, we're talking about joys. The military and law enforcement, and basically all these groups that go through extremely rigorous training, there's a reason why they have battle buddies. They have their best friends. They have these people that you just can't separate from because they went through some of the worst crap, aka training, so that they're able to do their job because they have that shared experience. You get friends from it. And it even happens in everyday people life where you can go through a trial. You might find someone who's going through the exact same thing with you at the exact same time. Some people call it trauma bonding, but at the same time, there's you build a bond with someone to get through. And then there's the other part where you've gone through the journey and you survived somehow. You find someone else who's gone through a similar journey and you commiserate together and you go, "Oh, yeah, I'm right there with you." And you're able to relate to other people where we all think we're going through our trial by ourselves. Everyone's going through a trial. The only question is, are they going through the same flavor as you, or are they adjacent? Or there's just so many different things where you try to figure out whether or not they are with you, or whether you can help them or they can help you.
Okay. As I was listening to you talk about shared experiences, I was thinking, well, as long as it's not trauma bonding. And then you said some people call it trauma bonding. So I asked our friend Google. So it says trauma bonding is an unhealthy, intense emotional attachment between a victim and their abuser, often characterized by a cycle of abuse followed by affection. Conversely, bonding over a shared experience is a supportive connection between peers who experience similar, separate, or collective traumas characterized by mutual understanding and validation. So I do think there's a significant difference between people having a shared experience and two people trauma bonding. Trauma bonding is not healthy, and having a shared experience can be healthy.
Yeah, and just to clarify, because that first definition, I believe one of the terms that goes by is Stockholm syndrome. I'm not talking about Stockholm
Well,
syndrome.
and I'm going to interrupt too because yes, it did reference that, but it also goes on to clarify that trauma bonding keeps the victim attached to the source of pain, and so that's where it's unhealthy. If you want to heal from your trauma and or overcome your trauma or get skills to manage your trauma, trauma bonding with another person is unhealthy partly because it keeps you as a victim attached to the pain. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does make sense, and there's of course always the negative definition where you are reliving slash associating slash embodying the trial that's hurt. But there's also you take one step over where you're talking about shared experiences, where there's the ones who focus on the pain, and there's the ones who learn from the pain and are able to commiserate and work together to improve their position. And so it really is don't get stuck on the the trauma, the fixation on the problem, but make it where you're able to grow and improve, which kind of goes back to what you're talking about is progress. As you're able to progress away from the problem through commiserating. I use commiserate because you're both going, well, that really sucked, and I'm glad you made it through it, and you're able to build upon it versus get stuck in a rut, reliving, re-enjoying the trauma. You're able to grow through it. You're able to improve, and that's really where you're able to build friends that are healthy by building upon, which goes back to trials can be blessings because you're able to find new friends, and it's in our DNA where once you get through, you get to teach your kids and those around you how to get through similar problems.
Yes. Yes. And so I do think the desire to progress and improve ourselves, I do believe it's in our DNA. We are meant to be expanding our knowledge. We are meant to be improving our physical bodies. And I just think it's so important. And I think if we use nature as our example, we can enjoy the process. I just really do. And I think, sometimes because I have been stuck in overwhelm. I have been stuck in burnout, and my therapist and other people have said to me, "Well, you better take a day off before your body forces you to take a day off." And I understand what they're saying. I've actually used that kind of concept throughout my life, that I would rather schedule a day off to do something I want to do before my body gets sick and forces me to take a day off, and then I'm stuck in bed with a bad cold or something. And so I do try to live my life in a way of where I choose to take a day off when I'm healthy, to go and enjoy my day off before I've burnt my body out so badly that my body forces me to take a day off.
Yep. Be proactive in your ability to embrace trials and be proactive in your ability to avoid preventable trials.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Why why would we want to inflict trials upon ourselves? Well, unless you're talking about leg day. I mean, right? We choose to cause ourselves some discomfort in order to improve ourselves. So, let's be mindful in the trials we choose. And there's an awesome book out there. I think this is the book. Oh, now I just totally forgot the book. You and I are being forgetful today. The book, it'll come to the name of the book will come to me. But I think you've read it too. It talks about, oh, I think it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up.
Oh yeah.
It talks in there about how the secret to having a happy life is having good problems, worthwhile problems to solve. Because I'm going to have to go back and reread that book, because it talks about how we feel happiness when we solve problems. And so the secret to having an amazing life is to have high quality problems to solve. Do you remember
And
reading that?
yes, I do. And also, I'm going to tweak that a little bit. You want to, you enjoy solving meaningful problems for yourself. Because, yes, you can solve problems, but if they're not meaningful, then they kind of just eat away at you. Yes, you're progressing, but you're not really enjoying it. But if you're solving problems you want to solve or ones that have meaning, that's where you thoroughly get the enjoyment of that progression.
Yes, the quality level of the problems we're solving leads to greater happiness. And so we're all going to have trials. We're all going to have obstacles. We're all going to have problems. The trick is to find elevated problems, higher problems to solve. If you're solving hunger amongst community people in your community, that's a high quality problem for you to be solving for other people, and it will bring you joy. And so we can choose what types of problems, trials, obstacles we want in our lives. Granted, we don't always get to choose, but we can choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There we
many things
go.
to grow and progress with, so many
Yeah.
trials to overcome, but it's all for our good,
Well, hopefully.
hopefully. So that's it for this one. Thanks everyone for listening in, watching, whichever platform you're on. Like, comment, subscribe. Add your thoughts on what the best trial is and what's the worst trial you've been through. And we will see you guys on the next one with What Else You Got with Mitch and Margot.